The bodies of the 3 Israeli settlers who had gone missing has been found. The world reacted. International condemnations came pouring in from the UK, France, and, of course, the United States. But no real international outcry after a near 3-week Israeli onslaught in the occupied Palestinian territories, where over 600 Palestinians were arrested. 12 Palestinians were killed as a result. And now, in what has been termed a revenge killing, a Palestinian boy has been burned to death by Israeli settlers. Well, the U.S. did condemn this one, although its condemnation did not go beyond words and was accompanied with no action. In this edition of The Debate, we'll discuss the tense situation in the occupied territories, where clashes between Palestinians and Israeli forces have many concluding that the third intifada will occur, and whether Israel is preparing for a Gaza invasion in which Hamas has said it would reply in force. You tune into The Debate. Let me introduce our guest for this edition. Writer and political commentator Gilad Atzmon joins us from London. We have President of Middle East Research Center, Richard Hellman, who joins us from Washington. Gentlemen, welcome. Richard Hellman, what's your conclusion now that the 3 missing boys' bodies have been recovered? Is it something that Hamas did? At this point, Israel still has not offered any proof. You would think there'd be some leads coming out of the 20 days of the onslaught that Israel exercised on the Palestinian territories. At least one lead as to why they think Hamas has actually committed this crime, in their words.
Well, this is a combination of law enforcement and anti-terrorism action, and it takes time. It's not a quick thing to decide. Just like the rush to judgment about the death of the young Arab man. In all these cases, all these deaths are tragic. They are to be deplored, and they are not to be justified. But sadly, at least in Jerusalem, in Israel, there is a legal process, and there is competent investigative resources and police activity. And so I believe that the Israel government will get to the bottom of the killings, both of the 3 Israeli young men, and also to the death of the Arab young man on the western side of Jerusalem. But here there is a legal process, and thank God to now the numbers are small, and we of course call on all to come together and resume talks for peace and stop the killing. That's the basic thing, stop the killing. But at the same time, of course, from Syria, from Aleppo to Baghdad, there is vast killing, and that's what that deserves much more attention. A raging civil war in Syria, fomented on one side by Tehran, by the Iran regime, and on the other side, backed up by Russia, by the way, and on the other side, backed by other powers, and ISIS now on its way to Baghdad and declaring a new caliphate from Syria to Iraq. There is much, in fact, there were 3,000, close to 3,000 killed and 3,000 wounded in Iraq in the month of June, the worst since 2003. So there's where we should be focusing on peacemaking, not to say that there are not issues to be resolved in the confrontation between Israel and the Palestinian Arabs.
Well, we are focusing on that, our previous debate yesterday. You can find on our website, allthews.presstv.com. Richard Hellman focuses on Iraq. But Gilad Atzmon, I'd like to have you in this and have your reaction on how things have unfolded now after 3 weeks, where we have the 3 settlers, they were found dead, and then you have now a reaction coming, still not proven, but many deducting that the extreme settlers were responsible for this. Interesting before you answer, what the Israeli police spokesman has said, that the main direction right now that the Israeli police is looking at is to see whether the incident was criminal or nationalistic.
Yeah, I can imagine that this is what the Israelis would do when a Palestinian is murdered by Israelis, either military forces or just settlers. We always try to find an alter motive that divert the attention from the murderous and genocidal and plunderous nature of the Jewish state. Now, I don't like to talk about particularities. I think that the situation on the ground is indeed grave. I like to understand how is it possible that the Jewish state that was supposed to launch a beautiful Jewish homecoming to celebrate the new Israelite and to solve the Jewish question, managed only, actually, to move the Jewish question or the Jewish problem into a new place. And this is a disaster. Now, I was quite, I don't know if I couldn't decide whether I was amused or actually very sad to hear Richard a second ago trying to divert the attention and to make us looking at Iraq and Syria. I think that the situation in Iraq and Syria is very grave, but we have to remember that just a year ago it was the Jewish lobby in America and Israel that pushed us to send ammunition and to support ISIS and all those very frightening organizations. And I think that we have to start to take a broad look into this topic and to understand that Israel is the biggest threat to world peace, and people like Richard and the Jewish lobby in America and Britain and France are actually very dangerous to their nation, to the people around them, as well as the planet.
Richard Hellman, I think you disagreed with everything Gilad Atzmon said, because I see your head shaking throughout the time that he was talking.
Well, I can agree with him on one thing. We need new policy for Syria, for Iraq, for Lebanon, and so forth. Policy that says these countries should be encouraged to have full and free elections and to turn to democracy. Right now, there's only one free democracy where anyone can stand up in the center of the city or in the town square and say whatever they want without fear of being murdered or imprisoned or having their families killed or having their house destroyed or having them put in prison, and that's in Israel. Now, Israel turned the Gaza Strip over to the Palestinian Arabs back in 2005, and I thought that the PLO would create a wonderful mini-state there, something like Monaco or the Riviera or Capri, because the beaches are clean, the water is clean, and the people are very intelligent. But instead, first the PLO and then Hamas have turned Gaza into a hellhole. And despite all the aid that has gone to the PLO, to the Palestinian Authority, over many years, billions, probably tens of billions of dollars in aid, they have not created a viable economy, and nobody has been elected legitimately in many years, not Mahmoud Abbas and not the Hamas leaders. There are no current elections and no current serving legitimate government. So, but in Israel, the economy is booming, and in answer to Gilad's statement from London, in fact, Israel has a vibrant democracy, a world-class economy. They are in the forefront of technology and medicine and many other things, and so they are a blessing to the whole world and would be more of a blessing to their neighbors if the Arab and Muslim world decided not to try any longer to destroy Israel after so many wars when Israel was attacked from the very beginning, instead of sitting down and talking with Israel or the Jewish community before Israel was reestablished. There were always invasions from 1948 to the present.
Go ahead, Gilad Atzmon.
I think that calling Israel a democracy is slightly pathetic. I heard it many times. I want to remind your viewers that in the Israeli democracy, half of the people who are living within Israeli-controlled territories are living in open-air prisons. Gaza is an open-air prison, and it's not a state. It's still under Israeli control, as we know. The West Bank is an open-air prison, and when Israel feel like in the last week, it entered the West Bank. It killed, it arrested. It's not a democracy. It's a Jewish democracy. In practice, it is a terrorist state. Now, the fact that an American Jew, a Zionist Hasbara mouthpiece, is suggesting to us, or telling us what should happen in Iraq or in Syria, this is slightly pathetic, but we have to get used to it. It is not down to an American Zionist Jew to... What do you mean, wait a second? I will give you... Let me...
You're wrong in your facts. You're calling me what I am not. Can I tell you what I am? I'm an American Christian who lived in Israel for 7 years, and I got to vote for the mayor of Jerusalem when I was just a foreign worker working on environment in Jerusalem to help Israel and the surrounding nations with environmental protection. I was allowed to vote for the mayor of Jerusalem, and there are 1.5 million Arabs, mostly Muslims, but many Christians too, who have all the rights of Israeli citizens and who vote in all the elections and even have members of the Knesset and have ministers in the government and the Druze and Sarkozy and the other people.
This is sorry.
No, it's not. It's not at all. It's not at all. I'm just correcting your facts because you threw a lot of stuff out there which wasn't so. And in the so-called territories, Mahmoud Abbas rules from Ramallah, even though he hasn't been elected in 4 or 5 years, and Hamas rules in Gaza, even though nobody elected them, and they are part of the. They are part of the brutality that is pandemic.
Let me correct you.
You interrupted him. Gilad Atzmon, go ahead.
Let me correct you. The fact that Mahmoud Abbas is sitting in Ramallah and this time you don't surround his mukata doesn't mean that he rule. You allow him to serve as a Judenrat, as a capo. You try to make him into your Sabbath goy, the guy that policing the Palestinians on behalf of Israel. This is not a sovereign, the PA or the West Bank is not a sovereign territory, and this also applies to Gaza for the time being. Now, the fact that Israeli Arabs are entitled to vote is right, but they cannot vote. They cannot vote on Israel not entering their territories, and this is what Israel did last week: put into action capital punishment, arrested 600 people, killed 12 Palestinians. We don't even know their names.
Right. Did you know that?
This is the issue. This is the real issue.
Did you know that, Richard Hellman? You talk about the fact that 3 settlers were killed.
Pardon?
Did you know how many Palestinians were killed in this 3 weeks that Israel went through the occupied territories?
Well,
how many Palestinians
it may be that
were
your
killed?
number is correct. I'm telling you that I'm not there. I'm not running the numbers. It may be more, it may be less, but I can tell you that Israel
there were 12 of them.
is the
Before you give your comments, though, Richard Hellman, hold on to your thoughts while we review some of the comments as covered on the Facebook page. I apologize. Hold on to your thoughts, Richard Hellman. Let's take a listen to our Facebook comments, and we'll get back to our guests momentarily.
I wonder when this crime against the Palestinian people will stop. Someone needs to put a stop to it.
Just some of the famous Facebook comments there that was posted. We had so many of them, and there were so many good ones, as a matter of fact. Well, Richard Hellman, I do apologize for cutting you off, but go ahead. You were making some comments before we went into the break, and well into the break you were still talking.
No, excuse me, yes, I just wanted to say that Israel is the only nation in the Middle East which will have a complete investigation of what happened in this situation, and in which also the independent judiciary, the court system, can be appealed to determine what has happened and to determine who is guilty for the murders of the 3 Israeli teenagers, and if it turns out that it is a murder of the Palestinian Arab young man, to determine who did it and why, and to, again, in each case, to accord appropriate punishment. But no,
yeah.
Because I have not seen this. I have not seen.
Gilad, go ahead.
It is very important. It is very important. It is very important to understand that the killing of the 3 Israelis and the retaliation of Israel is just part of the story. We are dealing with land that was robbed by a Jewish nationalist movement. It's a plunderous movement. These stories about democracy are totally misleading. Millions of Palestinians are refugees living in the region and overseas. And in fact, the fact that just 3 young Israelis were murdered a week ago. By the way, we don't know who murdered them, and it is more than possible that it was an Israeli false flag operation. Yes, your Mossad motto is by way of deception for you and the Mossad to lie is a kosher strategy.
Under the Quran and under the Bible, to kill one person is as bad as killing 100,000 or 1,000,000 persons.
I'm sorry,
but there will be an investigation in Israel, and they will get to the bottom of it.
But it has nothing to do with the Quran or the Bible. It's the way your favorite government, democratic Jewish democracy, interpret the Bible and called its Mossad mottos, decided to pick by way of deception. For you to lie, to kill even your own people, if it serves the tribal interest, this is exactly what you believe in. This is exactly what you believe in, and we see it time after time. You don't know what I'm talking about? You don't know what I'm talking about? So try to learn.
I told you I lived in Israel for 7 years. I'm an American Christian. I'm not an Israeli. I'm not Jewish. And so I am an independent.
Okay, I'm sorry. Unfortunately, we're out of time. I do apologize to our guests. Thank you very much for a very intense debate. Writer and political commentator Gilad Atzmon from London gave us his comments. And thank you very much, Richard Hellman. He's the president of the Middle East Research Center who spoke to us from Washington. And thanks for watching another edition of The Debate. From Mika Vitagui and the entire team in the capital, Tehran, it's goodbye.